Good afternoon, Brazil. Good evening, friends in Europe. Today, tonight, I invited Vanderlei here. Vanderlei is a dear friend. I consider him a friend, even though I have never met him in person yet, but we've been working together. I can say that for sure, for a year. He has some of his students here. I can tell already, two, three. Yes, some of his students are also here. He was also teaching my brother, who improved a lot on his English level with Vanderlei as a teacher. And he works also for English Brazil. I'm not going to tell much about it because I want you guys to ask him questions. So Vanderlei, just give us a little introduction and then we can start with the questions. Thank you so much for being here.
It's going to be hard to give a little induction, but I'll
This
I'll I'll
little
try to keep
one,
it
please.
short. So okay, so I was born in Porto Alegre in Brazil. My mother was 16, and because consequently she was so young, she gave me up for adoption. So two Americans who were missionaries in Brazil at the time adopted me, and they did. I ended up leaving. They were only about here 8 more months, and we ended up going back to the States. So I was literally just over one when I went back to the United States, and I came back to Brazil a little over 2 years ago. So I'll let you guys ask questions to keep it, but that's pretty much sums it up. My Portuguese is not very good. I'm still learning Portuguese. Unfortunately, I I wish I would have learned as a youngster, and I didn't. And I had a brother who's also Brazilian who was adopted. He came to the United States when he was 16, and he didn't speak English. And he's, of course, he's native Portuguese, and I wish I would have really learned then. I was 10, he was like 16, and but it was funny. We had our own. We could communicate with each other because my adopted mother, didn't speak Portuguese either, and so she would ask me to ask my brother because we could communicate. I don't know how, but we did. And so anyway, so I've been in the United States I'm 52. I've been in the United States about 50 years, and I've lived all over the Eastern Seaboard and Texas. So
All right, all right. I don't see any hands. So I'm going to ask you the first question. Vanderlei, please tell us the reason why, two questions, eh? The reason why you lived everywhere in these states. Of course, I know that already, but please tell them the reason why you're
okay,
traveling a lot.
okay,
And tell us what was the hardest part for you and your siblings to be moving around?
yes. So okay, both my parents were professionals. My father was they were missionaries, but my father was also a college professor, and my mother was a school owner, a teacher and a school owner. But so work separated them. My father lived in the north, Virginia, Minnesota, and my mother lived in Florida. So consequently, I would live with both parents at different times. And it was a hardship because I did move a lot. I've also lived with two different sisters. I live with one of my sisters in Texas, and I live with another one of my sisters in Florida. And I went to a military school in Virginia, and I went to a Christian boarding school in Mississippi. So it was, see, my parents, when they adopted me, they were already in their 50s. And of course, I was a baby. So they were old enough to be my grandparents. But they were very, like I said, they were both very engaged in their work, professionals, and they didn't always have the time for a child like me that was at times, I had ADHD, so I was hyperactive. I had a little bit of a learning disorder, also because I traveled a lot, moved a lot. I would fall behind because different schools were in different curriculums. So that didn't help out either. So that's why I lived in so many different places. As an adult, I also lived in New York and let's see, Minnesota, Virginia, Texas, Georgia, Florida. So Georgia and New York, I lived as an adult, but all the other ones was before I was at the age of 18. All the other states. So I have.
Wow,
It's
Vanderlei.
interesting. I have a unique accent because
Yes.
it's not really northern accent. It's not really a southern accent, and I live in Texas too. So I got like I think a universal accent for the United States.
You have a standard American accent because you do
Yeah,
sound American.
yeah.
Anyhow, let's see here if Renato can help us out. Sharing the map of America for us to have an idea, because I think most of us, we know how huge the country is,
Mhm.
but to see like the diversity, like where you were stated, they were completely different states, right? I mean,
Yeah, completely different.
culture-wise, not just the accent, but uh, yeah, that's you answered my question, but I would like to know like how was it to make friends because you're everywhere and nowhere.
It was in the beginning it was always like a challenge. Like when you go to a new school, you're kind of shy and but I was never like a shy child. I was pretty outgoing. I love sports. So I was able to make connections pretty well with people. My family were very always going to social events and stuff. So I was pretty adept to meeting people, but I was still shy in nature. So in the beginning, you know how it is when you go to a new school, it's like your first week or two, you're nervous, but you start making friends and you start fitting in and everything. So like I said, it was always at the beginning was a challenge, but at the same time, I don't really regret it because man, I got to live in so many different states, and like yeah, Mississippi,
All
completely. It's
right, Renato, please zoom out a little bit. Zoom out so we can see all the states at
okay,
once. Okay. Okay, tell us again where you were everywhere.
okay.
A little bit more. Renato, zoom out, please.
Okay, so he was on Mississippi. Mississippi is a very interesting state. It has a lot of history, especially from when the United States was going through segregation. There's a movie called Mississippi Burning. If you guys ever get a chance, it's a great movie to watch. Texas, which is also right there in the South, is a very interesting state. It's called the Lone Star State because at one time it was independent from the United States and Mexico. So
Oh,
they're very proud people, very proud. And when you live there, there's bumper stickers that say "Don't mess with Texas," Lone Star State, flags, very patriotic. But it's very interesting people. And of course, they have the best food, Tex-Mex. Oh my gosh, I love it. Um,
Vanderlei, from what you're saying, you're just living in the South.
those are the two states that you're showing right here. You're showing I lived in San Antonio with my sister. You see San Antonio, Texas, right there. Go down
Yes,
just a
South.
little bit, San Antonio. Very hot, humid, not quite like Florida, more of a dry heat, but very hot. Um, Mexican influence because it's so close to Mexico. Um, very proud. They love their football, a football Americano. They love it. They love it, and they're very proud of their football. Um, and then going over to Florida, if you go over to Florida, I've lived in Miami and I've lived in Lake Wales and Gainesville, and those are university towns in Tallahassee. And my father was a professor, so and my sister lived in Tallahassee, so I stayed there with her. Um, Florida is very diverse. You have a lot of people that move all over the United States. We call them snowbirds, like from the northern states. They'll come to vacation in Florida. They sometimes own homes in Florida. They'll stay there in the winter time when it's cold in the north, and then they'll go back to the north when it's in the summertime. Yeah, Florida is very diverse, very diverse. I lived in Virginia. If you go up a little bit, you see Virginia. Um, right there on the seaboard of the eastern seaboard, right there. Yeah, um, very historic state. A lot of continental from when uh, the Civil War, when the United States was founded. A lot of history. Of course, it's close to Washington D.C., which is between Maryland and Virginia. Um, Very beautiful. Lots of mountains. It gets cold. You get the true changes of the seasons. You have the spring, summer, autumn or fall, winter. In Virginia, you will experience all the seasons. And then if you go up to, of course, Minnesota, which is way up, very cold, very cold. the lake free. In fact, I was in kindergarten. I was living with my father. He was teaching at Northwestern in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I remember the lake across the street would freeze, and we would go skating on the lake. So yeah, you got to go up a little further. It's way up there. And and then of course, then I lived in New York City. I lived in Manhattan, and I was just before I was going to college, and I got to work at the big Macy's. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Macy's Day Parade, the iconic Macy's. Have you guys ever heard of that store?
Yes, we have. I
Yep.
mean, I have. I think most of us have.
Yeah, so I worked there. I was what they call a freelance model. I worked for Polo Sport, and all I would do is I would hand out a card, and it had a vial of Polo Sport or Safari, which at the time that was what Polo had, and I would spritz a card and hand them out. And I was making $17 an hour, which in 1994 was very good money.
Oh, wow, not bad.
Yeah, that I was able to save up for my wardrobe for college, and eventually after that I went to the Adirondacks, which is upstate New York, and I went to Word of Life Bible Institute, and I was following in the footprints of my parents. They wanted me to be a missionary, and when I was younger, I was like, yeah, I might want to be a missionary and go to Brazil. But after living in New York City and getting a taste of city life, and uh, I wanted to live in the city, you know, and I wanted to stay in the States, and so I lost my wanting for being a missionary. Really, you know, I just wanted to me, I wanted to live a normal life, you know. So
Yes, understandable. All right, Vanderlei, thank you so much. That was a very good overview from everywhere you've been. Now we know you are living in Brazil for the past 2 years already. Let's move on. Let's see what Heider has to say. Hey, Heider.
Hello, hello, Vanderlei. Hello, guys. Thank you,
hello.
Simone. Hello. So, Vanderlei, I have another adopted brother, you know. My brother met his biological mother. I ask you, have you met your biological mother?
Unfortunately, okay. So the Brazilian embassy in Miami, Florida, has been helping me do a search for my family. However, they warned me it was very slow. I've been here, like I said, 2 years, and I initiated it right when I came into the country. And I haven't really heard any word. I got an email, so they're still searching. So I went by myself and started going on Facebook and looking up my biological name, and I started contacting because I have a German name, but it's a little unusual. It's Kalasa. So I started finding people on Facebook that lived in Rio Grande do Sul, Porto Alegre, where I was born, with the same last name. And I just started basically asking if anybody knew these people, and I would give them my mother's name. I don't know my father's name, but I give my mother's name and my grandparents' name. And eventually someone contacted me back, and they said, listen, you are our cousin, but I have sad news for you. They said, your mother and our mother, which was my mother's sister, had passed away. And I was like, wow. And they said, also, you have no brothers or sisters. And I was like, that really threw me for a loop, that I came to Brazil to find this family I have, and my mother's dead, and I have no brothers or sisters. So yeah, it kind of knocked me off from what I originally came to do here, and I went through a little period of trying to internalize and take all this in, you know, because I didn't expect this, you know. And of course, I was talking with my adoptive family in the United States, and they're very supportive of me, and they're like, you know what, we're always here, and they're right. I have a wonderful family. I have 2 children. I have 3 grandchildren. I'm divorced. But I have a wonderful family. So if it turns out that this is true and my mother has passed away and I have no brothers or sisters, I still do have many brothers and sisters and family. So,
Okay, thank you.
in fact, I was talking with someone yesterday. I'm planning a trip to Porto Alegre here very soon. So that again, and I might be able to. I knew the church that my family went to when they were missionaries, and I might do a little bit of searching on my own, you know, so.
Okay, thank you.
Renato.
Thank you.
Hello, Vanderlei. How are you?
Oh,
It
hello, my
was my
friend.
pleasure to meet you in my birthday 1 year ago. Yeah,
Yeah, I saw you in
it was,
Santos, remember, for your birthday.
yeah, I'm always in Santos. I don't intend
Man,
to move
beautiful.
to US again.
Ah, okay.
No, come on, I have never lived there. And okay, but do you intend to come back to US? What's your plan?
Well, right now, and my daughter, she's always asking me, Dad, when are you coming back? And I'm like, I don't really know at the moment. I'm a Brazilian citizen and I'm a permanent resident of the United States. Um, it's because when I was an infant, my parents could have easily naturalized me, but they chose to let me to make that decision when I was 16 in case I wanted to become a missionary or in case the country, like Brazil, was under dictatorship at the time. So they were like, you know what, if the borders ever close, if he's Brazilian, he can go back. So they wanted to let me make the choice. Although I will say this, when I was 16, I was not thinking about citizenship and all that. I was thinking about girls and cars and sports. So I
Excellent.
did, and so I procrastinated, and then I did. So I'm a permanent resident, and a Brazilian citizen.
Okay, great. So you don't have
So,
a,
so I'm sorry, to answer your question is maybe eventually, but I have a lot of Brazilians who are like, man, you can live in the United States. Why are you in Brazil? I was like, man, relax. Let me live here. Let me enjoy the culture. I've been in the United States my whole life. I'm Brazilian. I know it's difficult here, but you know what? There are things about Brazil that are so different. Each country has their pros and cons, but I love this country. I love the people. I love the food. I love the culture, and I want to travel more, but it's so expensive to travel inside Brazil. It's just crazy. The prices are so
yeah,
expensive.
I think so. And in terms of US, what cities do you prefer to live when you live there? Big cities, smaller cities? What was
Um,
your preference there?
well, I can say each state that I lived in, I enjoyed certain things about it. Of course, Florida. I'm a fisherman. I love the fish. The seafood's the best in Florida. I love the big city, New York. It's a true 24-hour city. I always tease the guys here in Sao Paulo. They're like, "Oh, it's,
Yeah.
it's 24 hours." Like, come on Sunday in Sao Paulo at 6 o'clock, 75% of the city shuts down. There's those districts that are open all night, but the majority of it shut down. And it's like, for me, if I want to go get a pizza at 3 in the morning or whatever, I have to go far, but anyway, Virginia is very beautiful. The country is so beautiful. It's very close to Washington, D.C. There's so much to do in Washington, D.C. In fact, I encourage you guys, if you ever go to the United States, Washington, D.C., of course, Amtrak train's a good way to see the Eastern Seaboard. But the Smithsonian Institute is the largest collection of museums in the world. That place is incredible. And I went there twice as a young person, and I'll never forget
Uh-huh.
it. I'll never forget it. So I can't
Yeah.
say I have a favorite state. So I enjoy different things. Mississippi's beautiful. Mississippi's another beautiful state. I was on a
Uh,
I was in a boarding school there, Christian boarding school, and I was 12 years old, and I was on a cycle team, bicycle. And
uh-huh.
we trained for like 6 months before we went on our final trip, and it was called the Natchez Trace. It's a very well-known, very historic highway, and it's funny because they all had 10 speeds, and I came from Florida. I had a beach cruiser, so I trained on a beach cruiser, which ended up being good because when I went on the final trip, they loaned me a 10 speed at the time, 10 speed, 12 speed at the time. And I was better prepared because I had trained on a beach cruiser, which takes more,
Yeah.
it takes a lot, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure
All
to be
right.
with you here.
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Annie.
Yeah. Hey, Vanderlei.
Hello.
Question. Hey. You mentioned you're trying to find your family. Like, have you tried to do like a heritage test, like a 23andMe or something similar?
You know what? Not really. I've been actually kind of like letting like I said, the Brazilian embassy. Then when I noticed they weren't really moving so fast, I just started on my own. And the people I've been in contact with, they're quite credible. They're professionals in Rio Grande do Sul, and I've known them now for a year and a half. They haven't tried to ask me for money or anything like that. You know what I mean? So they just seem like they're authentic. I think they are my cousins. And unfortunately, I believed them. At first, I didn't want to believe it. So if we don't do a DNA test, I don't know, but I believe them. So I plan to go to Porto Alegre and meet these cousins here, and hopefully they'll have pictures for me.
That would be nice.
I've never seen my biological mother.
Yeah, that's crazy. And just a curiosity, because is Vanderlei a Brazilian name? Because
Very Brazilian.
it sounds so Dutch.
Okay. Oh well, listen, it's German. It is German.
Ah,
Vanderlei is German, but it's very Brazilian. And when I was in the United States, I had never, in my whole 50 years there, I've never met a Vanderlei. And in fact, they had troubles pronouncing it. So they called me Vandy because it was easy. But when I came to Brazil, like my first 2 weeks I was here, I met two Vanderleis. So
it's a common name. Yeah.
yeah.
No, it sounds so Dutch to me, but
Yeah.
now I get it. It's a German. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Probably dead, but I know it's German, and at least that's what I was told. So
yeah. Interesting.
All right, Annie. Fabio.
Me. Hello,
okay,
Vanderlei.
Fabio.
Hello, guys. How have you been? So, Vanderlei, we had a lot of class together. I've learned a lot of things from you, and now I have two questions. I remember you're always talking about food. I remember about our meetings, always food. When I look at you, I think about food. So, my first question for you is, what's your favorite Brazilian food? I know we have many different kinds of food in Bahia, in the north, in the south. Here in
Mm.
Bahia, for instance, we have a acarajé. I don't know if you had opportunity to try it, but the first question is, what's your favorite Brazilian food? And the second one is, you said you are living in Brazil for almost 2 years now, and you still said that you are not able to speak Portuguese fluently.
Right.
I know Portuguese is not easy to learn. It's a very hard language for some people. But my question about Portuguese language is, uh, what is the most difficult thing about learning Portuguese for you, even living in Brazil?
Okay. So of course I'll start with the food because it's always my favorite.
I know
I,
that.
I love to cook. I had a lot of sisters and my mother and my father. In fact, every Thanksgiving we used to smoke a turkey. We had a smoker. My father would grill. So our family was always cooking. So I was always like a kid, like always wanting to watch and help. And so I've always had a fascination with cooking. And then of course YouTube is off the chain. I could find anything on YouTube, recipes, how to try new stuff. My same thing with Instagram. I start looking at food. You know how the algorithm is. They send me all these kind of things, how to make these different new ideas. So I'm always trying new stuff. Interesting enough, my favorite Brazilian food I would have to say would be, in fact, when Renato, when we were at his birthday in Santos. Remember we had all the different types of feijoadas. Remember that? So I like feijoada except for certain types of feijoada. I have to ask because they have feijoada that has cow tongue, pig ears. I can't do that. I'm scared. I can't do it. There's just certain things I don't know. I'm scared to try. But your main feijoada is good. I got sick on the coxinha. I got food poisoning with that. So I don't really tend to trust too much of the coxinha in some of these places. Because we have a lot of when you're in Sao Paulo, we have a lot of bars where you can stop and get coxinhas and all the different. So ever since I got food poisoning, I've always been scared to eat there. But so Brazilians are like, so what's your favorite food? Is it Brazilian or is it American? And I'm like, it's neither. It's Japanese. And we, of course, we got a lot of Japanese here in Sao Paulo too. No, I'm sorry. Mexican, Mexicano. Mexican's my favorite. Then it's Japanese. And then it's Italian. And then it's Brazil and America.
Oh, that's good. Because I remember you told me Mexican. I was just like, Japanese? What is he talking
Oh,
about?
Mexican. I love Mexican. I love it. And we have a franchise here. It's okay. It's pretty good. You know how Sao Paulo has their own flair for everything. Like sushi is not like authentic Japanese sushi. It's Sao Paulo sushi. And the pizza is Sao Paulo pizza. And the hot dogs are Sao Paulo hot dogs. So, you know, but we have a good variety of stuff I get to try. So I do like the pizza. I've never had eggs on my pizza. I've never had mashed potatoes and corn on a hot dog until I came to Brazil. And at first I was like, I don't want that, but it was good. You know, it was good. So
How about the language?
on the
Portuguese.
language.
Why is it so difficult?
So my difficulty is I speak a little Spanish, but to me, Spanish is easier to read and to pronounce. So the problem I'm having is the pronunciation. I'm getting like I worked at I do events, and it was I'm probably still not saying it right. Ibirapuera Park. Does anybody know this park?
Ibirapuera.
See?
Ibirapuera.
Oh my gosh. For 2 months, I've been trying to get this right, and I cannot get it right. You know, because it's just like English. We have different pronunciations, like the TH, the thought, Thursday. You guys don't have in Portuguese, or words ending with ED is a struggle for a lot of Brazilians that are learning English, you know? And it's just like in Portuguese, we don't have all these nasal sounds, the mamão, those words, like we don't have these words in English. So it's just, and Portuguese and English do not translate well. So but like I said, I work events, and a lot of events I work at, I'm not allowed to use my cellular. That's helping me because I can't use the Google Translator or the translator. I can't use the Google Translator. So that's helping me. If I would have had a Google Translator, I'd probably be speaking Portuguese fluently by now.
Yes. And the Brazilians who speak English, they love to talk to you, of course, because they
Yes.
want to improve their English, right? Yes.
Oh, of course. I always like when I go to events and I'll talk to them, and I understand more than I can speak. So when they ask me something, I'm like, okay, I know what they're asking for. So I'll sometimes tell them, "Eu não falo português," or I speak a little. They'll be like, "Oh, you speak English?" Oh, and then they're like, they always want to practice their English. Always, they're a little bit of English, you know, or so.
All right. Thank you. Great questions, Fabio, by the way. Okay, Richard.
Richard in South Africa.
Yeah, South African. Sorry, now I was trying to find the microphone. You actually answered my question because I was going to ask you, what do you do? And you say you work events.
Well,
I was,
I do two things.
yeah. I just a quick. I googled your name, Vanderlei, and it actually is Dutch, and it originated in
Oh,
37 and was introduced by a Dutch cavalry captain by the name of Casper van Niehoff van der Ley. So it's
there
it's
you
definitely
go. And he was right. And the German, they stole it from the Dutch. Mostly
correct.
the way around. So now Annie, she's raised in the Netherlands. That's why she knows it. Good girl. Good. But
Actually,
Richard,
in English, it actually translates to Wanderley. So it explains why Vanderlei likes to travel lots. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Wanderer, you're right. That's what my name means, Wanderer.
wanderer. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'd like to know is, you said you work events. What type of events? And yeah, if you take us through that.
Actually, I do two things. I teach English. In fact, that's a story in itself how I got with English Brazil. But I teach English for two schools, and working for the schools isn't so profitable. But they're both dear friends. The owners and general managers are both very good friends of mine, and I'm just a creature of habit, and I just stay with them. But I also do private lessons, And in fact, Simone's helped me with that. And they've branched on. And I have 2 Brazilian tattooists that are good students. In fact, one of them is 2 of them, both of them are in Europe right now. Alex and Eric, Simone.
Yeah, that's good. Good to hear.
So I do private lessons, but the problem was I was in the house a lot. I wasn't really getting out. I'm just online all day, and I might get some exercise walking around, but I'm not getting a chance to really see things. And so I have 2 friends that are very good friends here in Sao Paulo, and they both work events. And they're like, "Why don't you come work events?" I'm like, "But my Portuguese." They're like, "Listen, you'll be fine." And you know what? My Portuguese, not speaking Portuguese, has not been a problem, or speaking that much has not been a problem yet for any event. But I work MMA fights. I worked at the big carnival. I just worked at an Armenian wedding. It was very interesting. I work a lot of parties. In fact, the Armenian wedding is the first event I've worked in Brazil that had no alcohol. I mean, usually if you go to an event, all Brazilians love to drink, well, most of them. And these events go till like 5, 6, 7 in the morning. And if there's free alcohol, they don't want to leave, So it's funny because the Armenian wedding, there was no alcohol. I'm thinking, oh man, we're going to be out here quick. No.
You said no alcohol at the Armenian wedding?
No, there was no alcohol. There was no wine, nothing. It was just food, dancing, and singing.
What kind of Armenian wedding was that? I'm Armenian.
Well, you know what?
Always
You know what?
vodka on the table.
And you know what? Maybe they were just strict Armenians, perhaps. You know what I mean? But they chose not to serve alcohol.
What kind of Armenians?
I don't really know. I know the music was different. The traditions, how they brought the groom and the brides, how they brought the bride and the groom in, and the music is different, very different.
I've never heard of an Armenian wedding not having alcohol.
But
it
wasn't the wedding. It was a party like before the wedding, like a pre-party.
Even then,
yeah.
As a standard, there's always like Armenians love their vodka. There's always vodka on the table, at minimum.
Oh, maybe because they are Brazilian Armenian. That's the reason. Brazilian Armenians are different.
I don't know.
Must be. It must be.
Could be. I don't know. That's a strange one. Sorry for interrupting.
No, don't worry.
I had shockwaves.
That's good. I'm glad to know that, because I was thinking, okay, Armenians must not really drink, so I must be wrong. Maybe it's just that particular family, maybe, or like said, maybe they're Brazilian Armenians and they don't drink,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I know that Armenians will find any reason to have a drink. Like, even someone visiting your home, there is always alcohol. If not vodka, there is cognac. If not cognac, there is wine. Like,
alcohol.
Alcohol is always there.
It's
and they get you drunk. Right? Shot after shot after shot.
Wow, guys. You see, you're always learning something new. Thanks for sharing, Annie. All right, Heider's back. Let's hear him out. Hi there. All right.
Vanderlei, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but when you introduced yourself, I understood that you was in the U.S. Army. Is that?
No, missionary. His parents were missionaries, not in the
missionary.
army.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Do you know what that
Okay,
is?
it's very different.
Yeah.
Okay,
you know what? It's interesting since you bring it up. My family is very interesting. My father was in World War II, but he went in 3 months before the war ended. So he went to France, but he didn't fight. My father's brother was shot down in France. He was a squadron commander of B-52 bombers, and he got killed in France. And in fact, a luggage came back to my family like a few years ago before my father passed away. That was from my brother that they bought in an auction, and they tracked my family down and returned it. Incredible story. So like I love World War II. In fact, I just was watching a Netflix. It's called Will, Will. It's a World War II movie. Man, it's incredible, incredible. But so yeah, I come from a family of Air Force. My brother and sister were in Air Force. I was in high school ROTC, but I also played football, so it interfered with the ROTC, and so I was kind of like half in it, But Air Force, my family was in the Air Force.
Okay, so here in Brazil, you are living as a visitor, or have you a Brazilian citizen?
Belo Horizonte, Santos, and Sao Paulo. So my next city I had a chance to go to Rio, and I have some students and a boss that for the school I work for, I've made very good friends with, and I want to go there, but I want to see Curitiba and Porto Alegre. So, and I have another good student in Salvador. So I want to see these 4 cities. It's just so expensive. If you go by airplane, I think it's like 900 reais to go to Porto Alegre. Which is it's crazy. Domestic flights are very expensive. So I checked on buses for Curitiba is not too far, like a day's drive. It's a lot more reasonable. So I might do that, because I don't want to spend a bunch of money on airfare, especially if I have my daughter and my 2 grandkids that are wanting to come to Brazil. I might need to help them financially. So I don't want to spend a lot of money on transportation if possible,
Okay, thank you, Vanderlei.
Lohans.
You had Erica had his hand up for a while too, don't forget.
Yeah. He's gonna go after Lohans. Hey, Lohans.
Hi. Yes, I think it's quite unusual to have missionary parents, or parents who are missionaries. How does it impact your life?
I'm thankful because you know what? From a very young age, I was always told that I was adopted and I was from Brazil. I've always known that my whole life. My parents never hid any of that information. And my parents, we were very involved in the church. And so they also hosted exchange students when I was growing up. So I would have, I remember I was like 12 and there was a guy came from Brazil. He was an exchange student. He was like 15, 16. And so I got introduced to all these cultures throughout my lifetime. We went to churches that were they would support missionaries doing this work. My niece is a missionary in Manaus right now. Her husband, and her 2 children. And in fact, they visited me here in Sao Paulo 2 Saturdays ago. And it was good because she was 15. No, I was 15. She was 4 or 5 the last time we seen each other. So it was like pretty emotional, because it's been years since I seen her. And so it also the negative part is my mother and father were really pushing me hard to become a missionary, and I really felt that pressure to try to live up to that standard. But however, when I got older and it wasn't something I wanted anymore. I wanted to still go to Brazil, but at that time when you're like 20, you think you have 1,000 years to live, you know what I mean? And I wanted to, I wanted to live the life in the United States. I wanted to make money, and I did all that. I went through that. I was in sales. I had a full career, and I got to make money. I was profitable and successful. But when that's another thing they asked me. Brazil is like, well, there's so much more money to make there, but life is not. You guys know, life is not all about money. If you have all the money, but you're working 70 hours a week, you're not enjoying any of your money. You're working all the time, I miss my kids growing up. I'm working. I work long hours. I was in the car business. I worked long hours. And but we lived good. We had financial wise, So I do regret that. But as far as being a missionary, I did feel the pressure to do that. And I don't know.
Did he answer you, Lohans?
Yes.
Okay, good. Eric, or did he answer your question already?
Well, he answered, but I have another one. So I realize there's a lot of positivity here. So I'm gonna ask you, what are some negative aspects, some negative culture shocks about Brazil, and also something that you might, since you came to Brazil, you got a different perspective. What are some negative aspects of the United States? So something negative about America and something negative about Brazil. What would you say?
Okay.
There's too much positivity here.
Yeah, there is. So, okay, we'll go
Yeah.
Brazil first. Well, I'm trying to think of Brazil. I was already thinking about Brazil when you said this. In the United States, I've lived in big cities, San Antonio. I've been to Dallas. I lived in New York City. I was in Miami. So I've never been robbed in my life. Unfortunately, I've already been robbed twice since I've been in Brazil. The second one wasn't so bad. It was kind of like they were more scared than I was. But the first one was pretty scary. I was two guys on a motorcycle that were armed. I was in Jabaquara, which is a bad area. I was working an event and I was on supper break. And I remember it was raining and it was dark. I should have probably just stayed, but I was like, I'm gonna go get something to eat. So I went out. It was raining. It was miserable. And these two guys drove, and real quickly out of nowhere, they approached me and they asked for my sailor and I think my wallet. And I understood what they were saying, but I was a little bit like, I was like, I don't speak Portuguese. And I probably shouldn't have said that because then they knew I was American. And they're like, sailor, Janeiro. So I was like, huh? So I gave them my wallet with my bank cards and a little bit of cash, but I didn't give my cellular. I said, eu não falo português. I don't speak Portuguese. And thankfully, there was two ladies from the church that like came over and they got spooked and left. And afterward, I did report the police, and the police said, "Man, next time if they ask for it, just give it to them because they said they will shoot you here in Sao Paulo." And in fact, they're proud of it. It's sad, but you know what I mean. So he's like, "Man," so I didn't know this because I'd never been robbed before, you know. So the second time I was robbed, I didn't have my cellular on me because like I was going out walking, and I'd already learned my lesson. Like even here, I'm in Buntantan, which is it's a better neighborhood in Sao Paulo. But when I go walking, I don't even take my cellular with me. I just take some cash and my ID, and that's all I take. I don't even take a cellular with me. So, okay. So the negative about the United States is the food. As you probably already know, most probably 60% of Americans are obese because we have highly processed foods. The food's not as fresh as it is here in Brazil. There's better varieties. Like here in Brazil, there's so many more varieties. We in the United States, we just don't have that large variety of fruits. And the other thing in the United States is junk food is cheaper. The healthy food is more expensive. It's the opposite in Brazil that I've come to find out.
Yeah.
Also in America, I think most Americans, and I'm not saying this is just general, not all Americans, but you have a lot of them that get caught up in the rat race and who has a better lawn, who has the bigger house, who has more cars. And when you start living like that, because I went through this, and when you start living like that, you start losing that zest for life. Like in Brazil, these guys, there are so many people in poverty, but you know what? They're so happy. They have their churrascos on the weekend and they invite all their friends.
Yeah.
And, when they're in like a favela, you know what I mean? And they know how to enjoy life. And that's what I always tell Brazil. I say, man, you guys know how to enjoy life, So that's just generalized, but.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel sometimes people ask me about, because I don't live in America. I was raised there, but I was a little kid, but I understand American culture.
Yeah.
And you can see this is very clear when you start talking about name dropping, because for example, Brazilians rarely care about what they dress or what brand you've got on your shoes. And Americans will pay thousands of dollars for a shoe that's of a specific brand, because it is of a specific brand. And about the food as well. Yeah, if you want to go out and eat something unhealthy, it's still expensive enough to where you're probably going to think twice, and you probably have access to healthier food elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like in America, the difference is just too big. Like it's just too cheap for you to get. Like I have students that live in the US that they're getting pizza every week. Dude, I only get pizza my birthday,
I know it's so
you know, because a
expensive.
pizza is like 100 reais. In America, for 20 something dollars, you can get a cheap
Yeah.
pizza from Domino's.
Yeah. And they have a dollar menu. McDonald's has a dollar menu. And you come to McDonald's here, it's like 30 reais for a burger and a drink. You know,
McDonald's in Brazil is the worst place
Yes.
ever to go. It's very expensive, very little food. And it's just like literally any other place you go to, any other like little place that you go to is better than McDonald's. I don't understand because I have a friend here that loves McDonald's. He swears by it. And I'm just like, man, all you have to do is just go to the place right next door because
Yes,
Belo,
it's the same
like
stuff.
if you know how Belo Horizonte works, Belo Horizonte is basically just food. There's nothing else here. There's just very educated people and
Oh,
food.
don't
That's
forget
all
the
we
bar.
have here.
What about the bars? All the bars.
Yeah, like yeah, but here's the thing. In Belo Horizonte, the bars they also serve a lot of food. So technically,
yeah.
you see food everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh
You'll
my gosh, Eric, what are you
So
doing?
that's the
Next
thing.
week, Vanderlei is moving up to Belo Horizonte. Oh my God, you just gave him all the tips that he
Well,
wanted.
we
He
got
already
plenty of
wanted to
bars
visit,
here.
now he's gonna
You're
move.
you're coming
He's
to Belo
gonna move to,
Horizonte,
oh my
Vanderlei. We need to go
goodness.
out.
What did he
I
do?
have some
Okay,
students.
guys. Sorry, I'm gonna have to interrupt you there because we don't have that much time. I have still 3 questions. All right, Maria,
Yeah.
please. Thanks, Eric. Maria, what's the
Right.
question, please?
I wanted to ask if there was anything that when you were living still in America, you thought that would be the same in Brazil, but after you moved there to Brazil, then you just realized that was completely different than what you imagined it would be.
Wow, great
Yeah, good question.
question.
Good question. Yeah. So when I was in America, you know, I did a lot of investigating with the internet and things like that to try to, you know, see what I was getting into. But the internet, you can only get so much. So when I came to Brazil, my first impression was like when I went to the stores, all the products, every store pretty much has the same products and they have a low selection because in the United States, it's crazy. Our selection, like for chips or cereal, they might have a whole aisle of like 100 types of cereal. You know, here in Brazil, it's maybe what, Eric, or something like maybe 10 or maybe less than that. And it's all the same. Every store has the same stuff. And also peanut butter is not popular here. Americans, we love our peanut butter. So I was not ready for that because I put peanut butter in my oatmeal, on my pancakes, and I eat big breakfasts like Americans do, and Brazilians never understand that because they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much food.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because in Brazil, they barely have breakfast. They drink
eat
orange
bread.
juice and then they go for a huge lunch. Oh, so
Big
funny.
lunch, big
That's
lunch.
good.
Yeah, big lunch.
That's good. Okay, Maria, I think he answered your question. Thank you. That was a very nice one. Okay, before going to Linda, I have Janice here who had a question from Haiti. Well, he's also living in Brazil. So maybe you guys can connect on that. Okay, please.
Hello, guys. Hello,
Hello.
Vanderlei. My question is about adaptation because I'm from Haiti and I've been living in Brazil for the past 5 years. And the first month were not very easy for the adaptation. And I'd like to know how it was for you to adapt yourself here in Brazil. Did you have someone who lived here and helped you to adapt yourself?
No, it's kind of a joke. I kind of tell people I crash landed in Sao Paulo. Like I didn't have very many plans. It wasn't very well thought out. Fortunately, I had some resources and I have a supportive family. Otherwise, I probably would have been in trouble. So I adapted well. It was just a culture difference that I was going through, and because I didn't speak the language at all, that was a little challenging, you know. But and another thing, I use public transportation here because cars are so expensive. In the United States, it's so easy to get a car. I was never on a public bus. I was on a school bus when I was a kid, but I've never used public transportation. And I was so scared to get on buses here in Brazil because I don't speak the language. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get lost and I'm gonna get, you know, so I was petrified for a while to use a bus. So I was using 99. I don't know if you know about 99 or Uber, but now I have 99 because it's cheaper. And so I was doing that, and then I finally started learning to use the bus. A couple of my friends here, they were like, "This is the different zones you learn," and now I'm an expert. I can get anywhere around in Sao Paulo. So I have some friends that are Haitian, by the way. I have a good friend who lives in the United States in Florida. He produces music, and he's Haitian. Yeah.
Oh, so you can put them in contact one day. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it's his uncle or something.
He's a great guy. He's great. He's a good guy.
Anyway, I have to go, so see you guys.
All right.
Thank you,
Take care.
Eric.
All right, see you.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
Linda, you have a
Good having
question.
a talk to you guys. Bye bye.
Hi,
Thank you.
Vanderlei. It's nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
I have two questions. You talk a lot about foods, but what do you prefer when you eat something at a party or at the buffet? Do you prefer beer or wine? And also you told us about you like sports. What kind of sports do you like?
Okay. When I was young, I grew up playing 3 sports: volleyball at church. Then I played football, American football, in the high school teams and in the middle school. And I love basketball. And unfortunately, basketball is not very popular here. Football is not popular, but volleyball is. So I've played basketball 2 times since I've been here in the city. I went to a park and we played there. Other than that, it's just not very popular here in Brazil. However, I like when college football season's on, I watch football games here in Brazil. I like soccer too, but I only like soccer when it's World Cup. Like when the countries are playing, when it's like, Brazil playing Argentina or Belgium or, In fact, Simone, do you remember that video I sent you from Facebook about the Brazilian band that was in Belgium? They were playing a World Cup.
Yes, carnival. Yes, of course I do.
Yeah.
Fun times. All right. So Linda's other question was about drinking. Are you a beer drinker or a wine drinker?
I like it all.
Okay.
But it just depends if I'm eating, usually I'll prefer maybe a wine. If I'm just with friends, I might like to drink beer. And of course, liquor. I started off drinking mixed drinks, and alcohol became a little bit of a problem for me. I've been working on that. Because when I was in the United States, I was only a social drinker, meaning if it was a party or an event on the weekends, I would go out with friends or, I would drink mixed drinks. I love mixed drinks, the sweet ones, like strawberry daiquiris and stuff like that. And then I started, when I came to Brazil, I had a lot more time on my hands because I wasn't working in sales. I was working teaching English. And so I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I started drinking here since I've been in Brazil a lot more than I ever drank in my life. And so that's something I'm working on. So I still drink. I'm not drinking nearly as much as I was. So.
Oh, wow. That's very nice for you to share something like that, right?
Yeah.
Richard just made a comment, like, you're so lucky that you didn't work on a cruise ship like us. Like when we used to work on a cruise ship, we were drinking 7 days a week for sure.
Yeah. Simone,
Wait. Come again, Richard? What did you say?
Between services, we'd go to serve breakfast and come back to the cabin and have a vodka and Red Bull, and it was normal.
No problem. No problem. And what did you say, Vanderlei?
No, it was interesting because I use you as an example, and I forgot about Richard. But there's a lot of guys I work with that are young, that might be waiters or bartenders, and I tell them, and they speak a little English. I said, guys, work on your English. I said, go to Duolingo, because they can't afford classes. I'll be like, Duolingo, go to YouTube, work on your English, because you can go work on cruise ships. There's so many things you can do. Because I had 2 students, they were basic, and they hardly spoke any English, and they got jobs on cruise ships already. And
Wow.
they're basic English speakers. One's a dancer, and the other one is I can't remember what he did, but they both got jobs on cruise ships. And so
wow, Vanderlei, you're changing people's life. And on this tone, we're gonna have to quit. We're gonna have to stop the session because I love listening to you. I'm pretty sure you could just talk. I know you can talk forever, but I mean, the way you talk, and I love your accent. So the way you talk is just so captivating. Like now, you see 1 hour just flew by. Sometimes
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my gosh, I just hope everybody's gonna be able to ask him. I hope it's gonna be, we're gonna have time enough, and you made it. It happened. So glad you took the time to
Thank
be
you.
here
I
with us.
appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Yes, it was so lovely. And I also would like to thank everybody who was here, who made this session so special, you know, especially for him, for Vanderlei. Been a while, helped me out with these meetings as well. And you just did so wonderful. Thank you so much, Vanderlei.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope you had a good time.
Yes, I
And for
did.
all of you guys, we have a meeting on this Saturday with a friend of mine from Turkey. So if you have time and interested, I hope to see you there. Okay? You
Thanks,
all
everyone.
enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vanderlei.
Bye.
Bye.